everyone, and welcome to the Mayors for Peace Education webinar, No More Hiroshima, No More Nagasaki, Future Leaders of Peace Activism. The facilitator for today's program will be Mr. Shinsuke Tomotsugu from the Center for Peace at Hiroshima University. Over to you, Mr. Tomotsugu.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I am Shinsuke Tomotsugu from the Center for Peace at Hiroshima University. I'll be the facilitator for today's webinar. So that webinar will be a fruitful one and will run smoothly. Your cooperation will be most appreciated. Now, all our speakers are showing on the screen. These members will take turns in giving presentations during the 2-hour webinar today. To open the webinar, Mr. Takahashi Koizumi, Secretary General of Mayors for Peace, will offer a few words of welcome.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us in our Peace Education webinar today from around the world. I'm Takashi Koizumi, Secretary General of Mayors for Peace. This year marks 75 years since atomic bombings. Despite the significance of this milestone year, COVID-19 pandemic did not allow us to have you and many other people visit Hiroshima and Nagasaki this year to renew your determination for the abolition of nuclear weapons. Therefore, we decided to hold this peace education webinar today in the hope that the younger generation will empathize with the Hibakusha's ardent wish no one else should ever suffer as we have, and will share in their message of nuclear weapons abolition. I sincerely hope that listening to the presentations by young people from around the world on their peace activities and to their discussions will help each one of you deepen your thoughts and further motivate you for your own activities in your communities. Now, I would like to introduce to you Ms. Beatrice Finn, Executive Director of ICAN, the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons. It's a great pleasure for us to hear a few words of encouragement. Over to you, Ms. Finn.
Thank you very much, Secretary General Koizumi. And thank you so much to Mayors for Peace for inviting me here and for the remarkable work that you're doing. It's a very special commemoration this year, and I'm really pleased to see so much new energy and support and new creative ways of building momentum for disarmament, including in particular through youth activism and through local governments like cities. And the 75th anniversary must really be the catalyst to end the threat of nuclear weapons. And we have the momentum and we have the legal framework to do so in the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. The youngest Hibakusha are now 75 years old, and their numbers are dwindling. And there's an urgency to act right now. And they were the first to experience the horrors of nuclear bombing. And they relive the pain every day to make sure that they were also the last to experience it. And for this anniversary, what we're doing in ICANN is really asking everyone to remember, to honor, and to act. And we want to remember the Hibakusha that have carried the terror of nuclear war for 75 years and share their stories, even as many try to silence them. And we need to remember what happened on August 6th in Hiroshima and August 9th in Nagasaki. And we need to honor them because the Hibakusha has stood at the forefront of the movement to eliminate nuclear weapons for 7 decades. And we need to honor their unwavering commitment and celebrate the victories of the movement. And we need to thank them for sharing their stories. But our thanks and honoring is not enough. We really must act. We must rise to the Hibakusha legacy by supporting their cause that all nations join the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, and that we as citizens, as representatives of cities, must do our part to work to eliminate nuclear weapons. And the Hibakusha have courageously spoken about the impact of nuclear weapons and really laid the foundation for a humanitarian perspective on nuclear weapons that eventually led to the Nuclear Ban Treaty. And today we have 40 nations that have ratified the treaty, which will become international law when 10 more join. And we hope that on the year that we commemorate the 75th anniversary, we will be able to reach the historic 50 ratifications before the end of this year. And this is really a remarkable moment where we need to urgently act to honor, remember, and the Hibakusha. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Ms. Finn and Mr. Koizumi. Very heartwarming and encouraging comments. Thank you very much. Now, Ms. Finn and Mr. Koizumi have to leave us. Again, thank you very much, both for joining us today. Before moving on, let me explain today's proceedings and some instructions for the Q&A. Please see the screen. Today's webinar will open with a lecture on the current international situation surrounding nuclear weapons abolition. Then we will listen to presentations by 7 young people from Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and 5 others mayor for peace member cities about their peace activities. And a Q&A will follow each segment. I hope this webinar will provide the presenters, the participants on Zoom, and the audience of the live stream on YouTube with an opportunity to think about youth-led activities. Next, I will explain how to ask questions. While we have live stream viewers on YouTube today, please kindly understand that we can only take questions from the participants on Zoom today. Those who participate from Zoom, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat box at the bottom of your screen during the lecture or the presentations. For smooth operations, I will read out these questions after each segment, and I have the have the presenters answer them. Now, Ms. Keiko Nakamura from the Research Center for Nuclear Weapons Abolition of Nagasaki University will give a lecture titled "The Current International Situation Surrounding Nuclear Weapons Abolition." Ms. Nakamura, hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay, good.
I do. Ms. Nakamura has studied nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation for many years and has worked at the Research Center for Nuclear Weapons Abolition of Nagasaki University since the establishment of the center in 2012. Now, over to Ms. Nakamura, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Tomotsugu, for your kind introduction. Hello, everyone. Hi. I'm Keiko Nakamura with the Research Center for Nuclear Weapons Abolition, Nagasaki University, RECNA for short. Oh, can you share the slide? Thank you. So the first slide, maybe? Okay, great, thank you. So I'm very excited to join this webinar today and meet you all online. So, and I would like to express my gratitude to Mayor for Peace for hosting such an important event. Thank you very much for having me here. So I am, please, okay, next, please. Oh, no, I think you have, okay, yeah, that's fine. So I'm now connecting with Zoom from Nagasaki. Of course, as you know, Nagasaki is the second city in the world to suffer from the devastation of atomic bombings. So although all of us are having really hard time right now due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but one day in near future, I would like to welcome all of you to come to Nagasaki because Nagasaki is such a beautiful place. Okay, so next slide, please. So I'd like to start my presentation by asking you one question. What this number mean? Well, if it's my classroom, I'm gonna spend the next maybe 10 minutes to ask, for each of you, your opinion, but since, we have a time limit, I'm just gonna move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So 13,410 is the estimated total number of nuclear warheads existing in this world, possessed by 9 countries: the United States, Russia, the UK, France, China, India, Pakistan, Israel, and North Korea. So this is a poster that we recognize, updated, and published every summer for the peace education. This poster illustrates the status of the nuclear warhead that each 9 country possess. So I don't know how much you can see closely, but each missile-shaped icon represents 5 nuclear warheads. So our warhead is the part of the nuclear weapon that actually caused the explosion. So the different colored icon represent different type of the nuclear warhead, such as the one launched from the ground, sea, and air. So you can download this poster and the guidebook from our website. So if you are interested, please look at it later on, okay? So as you can see, over 90% of all nuclear warheads are owned by just only 2 countries, the United States and Russia. So the other countries have much less, but currently China, India, Pakistan, and North Korea are thought to be expanding their nuclear arsenals at considerable rates. Next, please. So this chart shows the shift in the total inventory of nuclear warhead. At the peak time in 1987, the world had nearly 70,000 nuclear warheads. So since then, as you can see, the number has been significantly reduced. But during the last decade, the pace of the reduction has been quite slow. Next, please. So even though the number is getting smaller, but here is some, the huge worrisome trends is going on. This is called the nuclear modernization. So just like cars and computers that you have, nuclear weapons also have a lifespan. So that means those weapons manufactured during the Cold War are now getting old. So to address this problem, all nuclear armed countries are carrying out large-scale modernization programs, spending billions of dollars so that they can continue to maintain a more efficient, reliable, and powerful nuclear weapon system for the next 50 or even 100 years. Next, please. So the modernization does not simply mean the replacement of aging weapons. In fact, the US and Russia have expressed their intention to develop a series of new and more usable nuclear weapons. For example, you might have heard this news. This February, the Trump administration announced that it had deployed a new submarine-launched low-yield nuclear warhead. So by the way, what kind of impression do you get from the word low yield? If I ask the question to my student, maybe they answer like, oh, it sounds like a very small nuclear weapon that is powerful enough to destroy one building. But actually, the explosive power of the low-yield warhead deployed by the Trump administration was 5 kiloton, which is 1/3 of that of the Hiroshima bomb. So if you know how much disruption the Hiroshima bomb caused, 75 years ago, you can imagine this is crazy, something must be wrong. So the low yield should have given you a different image. It's not a small thing. So with a strong rivalry against the US, Russia also continued to develop and deploy more usable nuclear weapons. So both the US and Russia are accusing each other for the other party's act of hostility to justify expanding their own nuclear capability. So, recently some important international agreements and the international treaties have also been discarded. That's another problem too. So such escalation of the qualitative arms race between two superpowers is used as another justification for other nuclear weapon armed countries, including China, to expand their nuclear arsenals. So overall, the threshold for nuclear weapon use has been very much lowered, and the risks of this warhead being detonated, regardless of whether it's intentional or by accident, has greatly increased. So this is the situation, what's going on right now. Our world is actually facing a huge nuclear risk now. Next, please. So you may wonder if there's any solution, any international agreement to control and eventually get rid of nuclear weapons. The answer is yes, there is. There are, actually. The cornerstone of international effort on nuclear disarmament in the last half century has been the NPT, Non-Proliferation Treaty. So NPT has a near universal membership, 191 countries. And the treaty divides its membership into like two categories. One is a nuclear weapon states, 5 nuclear weapon states, US, Russia, UK, France, and China. So the rest of the member countries are non-nuclear weapon states. That's 186 countries. So under the NPT, non-nuclear weapon states pledge not to develop, possess, or acquire nuclear weapons. And the international organization called IAEA supervises their compliance. So in turn, 5 nuclear weapon states swear to reduce and eventually eliminate the nuclear weapons. So remember, okay? So the disarmament is obligation to them. So, however, as I stated earlier, disarmament effort of these nuclear weapon states has been quite insufficient. Next slide, please. So this is our world. 2 teams on the left side and right side. One side is consisted of the nuclear armed countries and the umbrella countries. That is the countries relying on the nuclear weapon of their allied countries. And the other side is the countries not relying on the nuclear weapons. So you can see that countries not relying on the nuclear weapon are actually the overwhelming majority of the UN members in the world. Next, please. So these are the countries, just for your information, the countries under the US nuclear umbrella. So Japan is one of them, NATO countries. So the point is, the umbrella states do not have the nuclear weapon, their own nuclear weapon, but they also share huge responsibility to achieve a world free from nuclear weapons. Okay? Next, please. So as I said earlier, and also the Beatrice mentioned, the new international treaty was adopted 3 years ago. So of course, there is no doubt that NPT is important treaty, but it definitely needs a new impetus. So the historic adoption of the new international treaty, TPNW, the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, is the big push toward a nuclear disarmament. So TPNW, supported by the 2/3 of the UN member nation, is the first legally binding international agreement to comprehensively prohibit nuclear weapons, including their possessions, use, acquirement, and threat to use. So just click, please. So I think Beatrice mentioned that, TPNW will come into effect after the 50th country's ratification. So as of today, 82 nations have already signed and the 40 nations have ratified. So probably within 1 year or so, TPNW will be entered into force, making a nuclear weapon completely illegal by international law. Next, please. But of course, things are not that easy. So none of the nuclear armed countries, as well as the umbrella countries, have joined the TPNW. And they have repeatedly said that they are not willing to do so even in the future. And that is exactly the reason many people in the world argue that the TPNW is just useless, ineffective. But next, please. But it's absolutely true that no single nuclear weapon will be eliminated unless nuclear armed countries take concrete action. However, it does not mean that TPNW has no impact. The countries that support the TPNW have emphasized that TPNW has a normative power, such as that nuclear weapons are not only immoral and inhumane, but it's shameful for any civilized country to maintain policies to rely on such awful weapons. So the proponents of the TPNW said, if many people devalue nuclear weapons, it will put pressure on the nuclear armed states as well as the umbrella states. So eventually it's expected that those countries will change their course of actions, but it takes time. So during the last 3 years since the adoption of the TPNW, there have been some good signs of the change emerging in our society. For example, the number of the cities around the world, including the city of the nuclear armed countries, have raised their voices to support the TPNW and have urged their own governments to join the treaty. Next, please. So 75 years after the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings, I think that we are standing at the crossroad, just like this picture. You can pursue the way to achieve a world free from nuclear weapons by taking actions, or you can choose to continue living in a world with nuclear weapons. This is your choice. Next, please. But you might think it's just impossible to achieve a world free from nuclear weapon. It's totally understandable because it's so tough to change the government's attitude, government course of actions. But I think, one of the serious factors as to why our government cannot change the course of action on nuclear policies is the lack of substantial debate among the public over the possible alternatives. So people accept the current situation, the unthinkable situation that we rely on, the inhumane weapon for our security for years and years, just saying, well, nuclear weapon protecting us. And as long as there is a nuclear threat, we have no other choice but to rely on the nuclear weapons. I think that's wrong. There are ways. So the first step I recommend you to do is to tell yourself, to your friends, to your families, and especially to your politicians, to think outside the box. Never say never. Next, please. Oh, and the next. So many ideas that seem obvious today were once very opposite. Many people once said, just only 5 years ago maybe, that adopting a treaty to ban nuclear weapon was impossible, but it came true. Another example is a nuclear weapon-free zone, you may know, which covers almost entire land area of Southern Hemisphere, involving more than 110 countries to make the area completely nuclear-free. So before adapting each of those non-nuclear weapon-free zone treaty, everyone also said that was impossible, you know. Well, I just want to emphasize, may sound idealistic, but it's not. Because our common sense, what is ordinary, what is very common to us, any idea we have or anything we have will change, sometimes completely change. So please do not say it's impossible to get rid of nuclear weapons. You have a power to imagine your future. So you can change the world and make it a better and safer place without nuclear weapons. Okay, I think I better stop here, and I look forward to hearing your questions, and then I welcome any additional comment or suggestions to make a breakthrough. Okay, thank you very much.
Right, thank you very much, Professor Nakamura. And now I will read 2 questions from the Zoom attendees.
Okay.
And Ms. Nakamura will answer them. The first question comes from Raquel Santos. That is, how can you measure the success of diplomacy, urging countries to sign TPNW? How can you evaluate the success of diplomacy, urging countries to sign the nuclear weapon ban treaty?
Okay, so the diplomacy, I mean, you know, I actually, I'm not quite sure what the diplomacy, you know, the person asked the question, you know, tried to meant, because there is a lot of diplomacy, you know, diplomacy by the politicians or diplomacy by the ordinary people like us, like a civil diplomacy, or city, you know, can do some diplomacy too. So, but anyway, there's many ways that we can motivate the government to engage in the TPNW. Of course, you know, signing and the ratification sounds good, right? But often, you know, especially for the other country with nuclear weapons and the country under the nuclear umbrella, it's really tough. I totally understand because I'm dealing with the Japanese government. So even though the government itself does not change the surface attitude means like, you know, the attitude toward yes or no, you know, signing or not signing to the TPNW, but the national sentiment can change a lot. And that kind of, you know, pressure can give the country to maybe, you know, I'm going to give an example of the Switzerland and also Sweden. They have not signed and either signed or ratified the TPNW itself, but they expressed already to join the member countries conference, which will be held after the entering into force of the TPNW. 1 year after the entering into force, the international conference with the member countries will be held. So those countries, even though not the former member of the treaty, can join as the observer. Okay, so but unfortunately, many countries say, well, TPNW is nothing to do with us. Just let it go. We really don't care about it. Wrong. So even though those countries cannot sign and ratify immediately, but they can keep watching, keep joining in the substantial discussion of the TPNW. That will be a huge contribution to that TPNW framework itself, because the TPNW itself is not the perfect treaty. There is a lot of things that they have to work on, especially like verification issues and then victim assistance issues. I'm not going to go into detail, but anyways, so there's many things even non-party of the treaty can do. So we can push so hard. Okay, sorry, it was a kind of long answer.
Thank you very much for your kind answer. And let me move on to the second question, which has no questioner's name. The next question is that could you tell us what motivated the US to develop low-yield nuclear weapons?
Okay, so the question is about like what is the motivation behind the U.S. plan to develop and then deploy the low-yield nuclear weapon. Okay, right. So but why? The first question is why they have to develop low-yield nuclear weapon. The answer is, as far as I understand, it's quite simple, because it's easy to use. So many people in the world consider nuclear weapons as more political weapons, as a tools of the deterrence. I think many of you understand what the deterrent is. Deterrence is threatening. Use the weapon as a tool to threat the potential enemy, so that the potential enemy feels, oh my gosh, if I attack the other, I will get retaliated. I will attack back from it. So we are afraid to do that. So refrain from attacking. So that's the logic of the deterrence. Okay. So during the Cold War, of course, there was a huge risk that the nuclear weapons were used by the superpowers, the Soviet Union and United States. But they developed so many large nuclear weapons, believing that the nuclear weapon will prevent other parties' attack and therefore protecting their security. But now, US, Russia, and the other nuclear weapon states, most of them believe the nuclear war can happen and they have to win. So now the idea has been transformed from just only the political weapons, but now it's more usable weapons. So the risk of the nuclear weapon use is getting much higher. So that's the short answer. But of course, I really want to say that, I personally hesitate to use a low yield or small nuclear weapon because, as I mentioned in my presentation, it gives you a very different image, to many people. Because right now, the average size of the explosion power of the weapon actually deployed by the nuclear weapon states is 100 or 1,000 times larger than the one of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bomb. So comparing with the current status, the Hiroshima and Nagasaki is, we can say, small bomb. So that's exactly the reason we have to learn the Hiroshima and Nagasaki experiences, because when we make a choice, when we consider, evaluate what the government is doing, those informations, what happened to people under the mushroom cloud will help you to understand. Okay? Sorry, it was a long answer again.
Understood. Thank you very much. Now, this concludes the Q&A session.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nakamura. Many thanks to those who asked questions too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, we will listen to two presentations by young people from the atomic bombed cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki about their peace activities. Like before, please enter any questions in the chat box during their presentations, clarifying to whom you are asking the question. These questions will be answered after both of their presentations finish. The first, Mr. Mikhail Kai Nomura, youth peace volunteer active in Hiroshima, will give a presentation. Mikhail, over to you.
Thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Mikhail Kai, and I am one of the pioneer members of the Youth Peace Volunteer. Today, I will be presenting about what this volunteer is all about. For the outline of this presentation, I will have 3 main points, although I will be focusing mainly on point number 1. We will start as I explain what our mission is, then explain the process of becoming a volunteer. I will also include what we have learned as volunteers and present our future plans in the end. Let me first read our mission. As the youth carrying the next generation, our mission is to convey Hiroshima's message of peace to the foreigners visiting the Peace Memorial Park. Let me explain what we are in detail as we look at our mission. First of all, this volunteer activity is done by the youth in Hiroshima, which are high school and university students. Last year, we had 25 high school students and 6 university students, with a total of 31 youth volunteers. Our main activity is being an English tour guide for international tourists. Through the guide, we hope that we can convey Hiroshima's message of peace, which calls on abolition of nuclear weapons and a desire for universal peace. We also believe that we are carrying the hopes of the hibakushas, or survivors, that no one will experience the tragedy of 1945 ever again. Let us now move on to the process of being a youth peace volunteer. First, of course, we had our application. Yes. Once the volunteers get selected, the training period starts. During our training period, we had an opportunity to listen to an A-bomb survivor's testimony in English. For some of us, it was the first time hearing the first-hand story of the bombing. We also received a guided tour in English from the peace volunteers who have been tour guides for a long time. During the tour, we learned a lot, not only about information of the places, but tips in being a tour guide in general. One of the outputs we needed to do in our training was to make our own version of a written guide, like a guidebook, for us to use during our guide sessions. Other activities we have done during the training period are doing workshop and doing practice guide sessions. The workshop aimed to deepen our understanding regarding multiculturalism, which helped us a lot during our cross-cultural communication with international tourists. We gave a practice tour guide session to two international high school students as well, and received helpful feedback after the guide. So now I will be showing some pictures of us doing our tour guides. Our first official guide was on August 5, 2019, which is exactly a year ago tomorrow. We guided 24 youth from 9 countries and regions participating in the International Youth Conference for Peace in the Future, a conference organized by the Hiroshima Municipal Board of Education. Since then, we have been doing English guided tours for international tourists once a month, although the current global pandemic has paused our monthly volunteer activity. So maybe you're wondering how we exactly find the tourists for us to guide. During the day of our monthly guide, we roam around in the Peace Park and ask the tourists if they would like to receive a free guided tour of the park. Of course, there are times that we get rejected as well. As you can see, we are the ones wearing the orange clothing, just like what I'm wearing today. And we usually do the guide in groups of 2 to 3 volunteers per guide. So to proceed, I would like to present some learnings we had as Youth Peace volunteers. For our first year, we were able to give guides to 232 people from 41 countries and regions. For each guide that we do, we were able to interact with people with different perspectives and cultural backgrounds. As we share Hiroshima's message of peace to them, we are also learning something new from the tourists that we give the guides to. So here are some comments from the volunteers written in our first annual report of our activity. As the youth of Hiroshima, we are responsible to spread the reality of what happened in Hiroshima and hope for a nuclear-free world. This volunteer activity we are doing is one of the ways in which we can spread the reality of the bombing to foreigners. Another comment says, it's not about just reading the guidebook we have created, but it's about sending the message you want the visitors to take home. We believe that each international tourist visiting the Peace Park will go back to their home countries and spread their experiences as tourists in Japan. We are hoping that the tourists can be peace ambassadors in their home country as they realize the importance of Hiroshima's message of peace during their visit here. So lastly, let me introduce some of our future plans. Last May, new volunteers have been accepted, and currently they are ongoing training. So experienced volunteers are also helping in training the new volunteers, such as sharing the experiences we had on our first year of volunteering. Another plan that I have personally as a Youth Peace volunteer is creating tour videos of the Hiroshima Peace Park that can be posted on social networking platforms in order to reach out more people online. So let me now show you a sample guide of how we do our tour guide. Please feel that you are here in Hiroshima with me as I give you a tour. So hello, good day. My name is Kai and I will be your peace tour guide for today. Let us start our tour with this building in front of us. This is the Atomic Bomb Dome. Before the bombing, it used to be the Hiroshima Prefecture Industrial Promotion Hall, which was a symbolic building of Hiroshima City. However, at 8:15 a.m. on 6th of August 1945, a tragedy occurred. The atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. No one who was working on this building could survive this tragedy. Some people said it should be destroyed immediately because the existence of this dome evokes painful memories which every hibakusha or survivors have. Others said it should be known all over the world as a witness to the damage of nuclear weapons. However, it is said that one girl's diary had a big influence on public opinion. A 17-year-old girl, Hiroko Kajiyama, kept a diary every day. In her diary, there was a phrase, "People will forget the tragedy of Hiroshima after the 20th century. In the future, only the atomic bomb dome and the words written on the cenotaph will remind us of the horror of nuclear weapons." This is one of the reasons we can see this important building nowadays. So that is how we do our tour guides during our peace tour. So let me end by telling you one last thing. We are not just tour guides explaining the meanings and giving information of tourist spots. We are the youth carrying the message of hope and peace passed on from the survivors. We will bring the message of Hiroshima to the world by connecting with foreign visitors. This is the bottom-up approach we, the Youth Peace Volunteers, are doing as advocates of peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mikao. Now, next, Ms. Sunao Takemi, Takami from Nagasaki Youth Delegation will give a presentation. Sunao, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Hello everyone, my name is Sunao Takami from Nagasaki Youth Delegation 8th. And can you set the PowerPoint on the screen? Yes, thank you. Okay, so from me, I'd like to talk about what Nagasaki Youth Delegation is and what we are doing. The next, please. Nagasaki Youth Delegation is sponsored by the PCU Nagasaki Council for Nuclear Weapons Abolition, which stands for PCUNC, and it's organized by Nagasaki University and Nagasaki Prefecture and Nagasaki City and Creek. So that's the Nagasaki Youth Delegation, and we are supported by all of them, all of those organizations. And next. So Nagasaki Youth Delegation itself is a human resource fostering program, and we aim to gain knowledge and action skills, mainly throughout the participation to NPT Review Conference. And we also have some activities in Japan, and we also have a lot of opportunities to learn about the international affairs, and we also have some opportunities to meet with activists. And next. So throughout our overall activities, we have been having regular meetings and about 2 or 3 meetings every week at the average. And during these regular meetings, we have been talking about what we wanted to do throughout our activities as a team. And for depending on what we want to do, we have been scheduling for some events, or we actually having been planning some events. And we also have a lot of time to discuss with one another about the current news or what we learned from that day, or like just a basic communication as friends. And next. And we also had a lot of opportunities to learn things, and concretely we have been learning about what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945 for sure, throughout listening to Hibakusha's voice, or we have been learning about current situations of nuclear weapons and nuclear power plants and nuclear tests and health damages of radiation, or listen to war experience from people who experienced the war, and a lot of other things too. And next. And all of those learnings have been provided by a lot of people, and which were Research Center for the Nuclear Weapons Operation, which stands for RECNA, or the atomic bomb, or the hibakushes, some hibakushes in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and the Atomic Bomb Museum we've visited, and university professors or former government officials sometimes, and some journalists or graduate members of the Nagasaki Youth Delegation. And next. We also have visited Hiroshima as part of our learnings, and we visited Hiroshima Peace Institute and Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum, and we saw some bombed remains, and we visited Hiroshima Peace Media Center and Social Book Cafe Hachidorisha. And as you can see in the bottom, as you can see the picture in the bottom, like throughout that day, we have been exchanging our opinions or what we felt from that day to one another, because we are different people, and what we learned from that day or felt were completely different. So that was a very interesting and deep and great time for us to do. And next. So we were planning to go to the 2020 NPT review conference, which was postponed because of the COVID-19. And so our trip was canceled to the New York, of course. And next. So instead of that, we have been discussing what we could do still in Japan. And we've come up with a couple of online events to hold on. And one of them was that we had in 24th May, and we provided a presentation to people online, and whose title was that all humans could be next hibakushes, and all humans could make others be hibakushes. And we had this event in English because the target of this presentation was toward all the people in the world. So we thought that using English could be a better way to tell our message to the people. And eventually around 90 people participated in our event, and that was a really great time. And next. And also we had a online talk session with young people, which was more casual one than any other events that we had. And we had this event last month, and the participants were some high school students and some university students. And we had this event because we wanted to spread our activities, and we wanted more young people to know about our activities and there's things that we could do. So that was a very great time for us, because we got to know each other with same young generation mainly in Nagasaki. So yes, that was a really great time. And next. And as other kinds of activities, some of us have been providing peace education at schools in Nagasaki, and we also had some opportunities to speak as panelists in the events, and we also had a couple of online meetings with American young people, and we've exchanged our opinions and thoughts about the world with nuclear weapons and toward the world free from nuclear weapons. And we also have been interacting with high school students in Nagasaki who are actually younger than us, and that's really great time to get to know each other and what we are doing. And next. So as the final words from me, I want to tell you our message as the delegation, as a group, which is all humans could be next hibakushes, and all humans could make others be hibakushes, which I've already explained a bit in the middle of my presentation. And as a group, we came up with this idea because we realized that we were living on the same one Earth with nuclear weapons, and it is the reality that we have now. And being uninterested, or even if being interested but saying nothing, allows you to and if we do that, the governments can listen to us, at least countries like Japan. So I wanted to tell people such message. So we had this, we had the event to tell this message too. And throughout our whole activity, we want to tell this message to people and you all. And that's next. That's all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sunao-san. Now I will read out a question for Mikhail and Sunao about their presentations. The first question is for Mikhail. This is a question from Mr. Koizumi. And this is could you tell us what the most difficult question asked by foreign tourists was?
That is also a difficult question.
Great answer.
Probably, like every time we do our guide, we receive a lot of questions, and some questions are really very difficult to answer. But probably one of the most difficult ones was like, how can Japan be involved more in the nuclear abolition movement? And so that was a question given to us by a foreigner, and they asked that question because they knew that Japan is not yet signing or nor ratifying the Treaty on Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. So they asked us, how can Japan be a leader of that movement, the nuclear abolition movement? And of course, our answer is very it's very difficult to address this answer because it involves politics and also government. But yes, that's probably for me, it's the most difficult question I received. Yes. Do I need to answer what kind of answer I answered with that question? Should I?
If you can.
Yes. When I was asked that question, my answer was that because, of course, first Japan is under the nuclear umbrella of US, and Japan, even though in Hiroshima, they wanted Hiroshima itself, the heart of Hiroshima is abolition of nuclear weapons, but Japan in general does not have the same heart with Hiroshima. So whenever I answer those kind of questions, I tell them that Hiroshima wants nuclear abolition, but Japan as a whole country does not have that stand yet. So yes, that is my answer to those kind of questions.
Thank you. I think it is a nice answer.
Okay, thank you.
Well, the next question is for Sunao-san.
Yes.
Right? Which activity do you think has been most effective to convey peace message? This is from Ines, France.
Okay. Thank you for the question. And it's kind of difficult because it's not true that I know every part of the activities that the young people are doing in Nagasaki, but I think I love the variety of it because I think peace is, the definition of peace varies depending on that person, and also the city, as the city Nagasaki itself, I feel allows young people to believe in what we young people selves believe in, and so I feel like we can do what we want to do toward the peace, like the world free from nuclear weapons. So, and also we tend to be able to focus on our future, not all the time the history in the past. To change something for the present, in the present situation or for the future, but I feel like I want to all the time want to focus on the presentation that present situation that we want to make or the future that we want to live in. So I like the variety of the activities of the youth in Nagasaki, and I think that's really great point of Nagasaki. I hope this is does make sense, but thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, this conclusion. Thank you very much, Mikhail and Sunao-san. I will now, thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. Many thanks to those who asked questions too. Next, we will have 5 young people who have participated in the Mayors for Peace Youth Peace Exchange Support Program share what they learned in Hiroshima and what they are doing after returning home. We will have them answer questions after all the presentation finish. Let me remind you to please enter questions and their intended respondents in the chat box by the end of their presentations. Okay, to start as of, Ms. Ines Lacarol from Grigny, France, will give a presentation. Ines, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, hello everyone. I will present to you the work that Grigny has done for peace this year and what are my thoughts about the trip to Hiroshima for ICPF 2019. Next. So I will talk about what I've learned in Hiroshima and about what I think too. For that, I will divide my speech in 3 parts: the museum, the people, and the cultural aspect. Next. About the Peace Memorial Museum, what caught my feeling the most is the children's drawing, because a child is innocent and usually a child can draw. But here, we just see the horror and the fear that they felt. The second thing that get me emotional is the history under the cloth of the victim, because all those testimonials are individually a little history, which form a big history of the atomic bombing that we know. What I've learned is first the consequences of the atomic bombing, mainly on of the victim, but on the others too. I've learned how much Japanese people are strong in the way they get over that, and the fact that they forgave such an inhuman act is such a proof of that strength. Next, please. About the people, I've learned a lot of things too. I've learned that Japanese people are very kind, welcoming, and the most peaceful people that I ever met. Maybe they are this peaceful because they understand better how much a war can be miserable. From the participants, who are many people from all over the world, I've learned that there are not many differences between young people, and to be honest, before coming to Japan, I had a lot of stereotypes about the qualities of the participants, and thanks to that, I've learned that what I see on the media is the truth. Next, please. From the cultural aspect, there is so much Japanese language. Working on it, I promise. Next, please. After returning home, it was really important for me to pass on that. be interviewed by newspaper. There is Actu.fr and Greenimag with the municipal newspaper of Green. I've been authorized to give a talk about atomic bombing and a debate in my high school for 3 classes during the history class. In addition, during commemoration of my city, I've been asked to do a testimony about my trip. And finally, we have the annual peace event, has the drawing contest, the 10-kilometer run for peace, and a festival to discover another culture, because it is important to know the culture of his neighbor to make peace. This year, it was an Indian festival in honor of Gandhi. Next, please. For the 21st September, we had the chance to welcome Latifa Ibziaten, who is a French peace activist who leads a peace association, and her particular history is that her son has been killed by a terrorist in Toulouse in 2012. We read poems in French. We saw the peace from Hiroshima, and we had debates about peace. We watched a peace documentary movie, and finally, we had the lantern ceremony inspired of the Japanese culture. Next, please. For the 75th anniversary of the atomic bombing, since we couldn't do an event because of the COVID-19, we do the Purple Crunch Challenge. It was an idea that we had last year at IECPF, and it's a good idea for that specific year. In addition, we'll try to create a children peace message by just filming children express themselves about peace, or by sending a postal card from our children to children living in conflict area. Next, please. Thank you for listening to me from Green.
Thank you, Ines. And next, Mr. Heriberto Santo de Lima, sorry, from Santos, Brazil, will give a presentation. Over to you, Heriberto Santo de Lima, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Greetings to you all. It's great to be here. I'm very pleased to be here. And I really came to honor the importance of this invitation to represent my city and all citizens that are doing better for peace here. My name is Herbert and I'm from Santos. Next, please. So it's a little bit about the city. Santos City is a coast city. We have beautiful beaches, an economy that surrounds the seaport that we have here. It's the largest seaport in Latin America. And we are quite a big city with almost 500,000 people. Next, please. The city is committed with Mayor for Peace since 2015. And also it's important here to acknowledge the participation and support of our mayor for the activities here presented too. Next, please. We built like this bridge from Hiroshima to Santos. We had 11 Santos citizens sent to Hiroshima. I was one of them, and Nagasaki too, to learn more about the culture and the Act of Mayors for Peace network. There are many learnings, opportunities, and life-changing experiences. All of us traveled to Japan, and we are connected, making significant changes in each single area of expertise of we have. Next. Well, my journey is a mix from the family that hosts me. By the way, I love you guys if you're watching. Passing by my colleagues of the summer program, to the amazing speakers and teachers that presented their knowledge to me. All the learnings are carrying a heavy importance in my activities up to the day. I try to transmit those learnings to my students, to my co-workers, to my partners, and all the communities here at Brazil. It made me follow the path of culture of peace and realize the importance of dreaming a world at peace. Next, please. So about our efforts on maintaining the peace flame here, We have been organizing on a year basis the annual peace ceremony. We always have the presence of Hibakshas in Santos, and we honor their history and experience, always remembering no one should suffer what they did. Next, please. I want to talk a little bit about the Culture of Peace News Network. We have this work been doing to promote peace. We are of a big schedule of interviews in our YouTube channel, especially on the quarantine. We invite the listener to participate on the YouTube channel and invite them as the speakers to talk about peace paths and discussions that are related to the subject in order to promote peace. If you want to subscribe it, just enter in the YouTube and look for the channel. There are really important pieces of information there and interviews too. Next, please. We also promote a website for Culture of Peace News. It's called CPNN. It's an initiative that brings news about peace around the world. Anyone can collaborate sending your news, like students or even like professors or journalists that have like peace news can send their news to the website. Just enter the website and you can send your news there. Next, please. We also have a big effort in an amazing initiative at schools. We are acting to promote the concept of restorative justice, a wide concept that have been helping students and teachers to create more peaceful environment at schools. It has been a success, decreasing the number of conflicts significantly. I'm proud to say that even my mother is acting as a restorative justice agent and being part of these results too. Next, please. Also, there is a big effort of our communities and especially the schools to promote peace using arts, painting, theaters, and others. The young people are being educated to understand about the culture of peace and the danger of nuclear weapons too. Next, please. We are living hard times with the COVID-19. We have been increasing investments in public health care, supporting civil society to fight economic challenges and the consequences such as poverty and hunger here. The challenge goes beyond and made us change radically our forms of interacting and especially educating our children in this pandemic. The use of online tools and creating access to technology to all are challenges yet to be overcome globally. And even we are knowing that Santos is a privileged, healthy, and organized city, we understand that this is not the reality of all the cities around the country and the globe as well. It's unfortunate that our interchanges have to be canceled and postponed during this time. But on the other hand, it reinforces the relevance and the need of maintenance of international cooperation as well. We stand and repeat, no more Hiroshima, no more Nagasaki. Next, please. One of the efforts of our civil society here too, to promote peace is about this great example that's showing on the screen, is the international program called the Warriors Without Weapons. It's a program designed for young people all over the world to build a world we all dream of. It's organized by Instituto Elos, that organization that I work for. These warriors that pass by the program are creating oases. That's the name of the game that we create to change the places all over the world, restoring hope and creating perspective for communities that have lost their ability to dream and also to dream in peace, of course. Next, please. And for last, but not less important, it's our effort to promote peace from our communities in daily lives. Local communities' mobilization and participation is also something to highlight. It's organized and inspired by the path of peace. These communities are changing the city step by step. I'm part of those groups, and one of our big dreams is to build a school for life, open to everyone, teach, learn whatever they want, and live together in peace too. That's one of my big dreams, and I want to still come up here next year and tell you more about this when it's done. Next, please. So thank you very much for the time. I'm really happy and honored to be here presented, and thank you very much for Mayor Surpice for the invitation. And I hope you all can keep doing beautiful projects for peace. If you need to talk to me, please have my contacts. I will be happy to answer. Thank you.
Muito obrigado.
De nada.
Herberto. Thank you. Now, Mr. Nikita Piskunov from Volgograd, Russia, will talk about his peace activities.
Yes. Presentation. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. My name is Nikita Piskunov, and I participated in the work of Hiroshima and Peace Study Course 2017, and now I would like to present to you my peaceful activity for the last years after course finishing. The next. In October 2017, I participated in the work of the Roundtable Public Diplomacy in the Modern World, Youth in the Peacemaking Process and International Cooperation. There we discuss about the non-proliferation of nuclear weapon and the necessity of public and youth diplomacy in the modern world. The next, please. Every year from 2015 to 2019, I personally participate in the work of the International Forum Dialogue on Volga, Peace and Mutual Understanding in the 20th century. And I participated in the work of this forum and in its organization. The next. In the work of this scientific forum took part different specialists of international relations issues from different parts of the world. It is very important to say that they discuss different points of the modern international relations of international security. They concluded that all mankind should construct friendly relations and to make all efforts to stop and to abolish nuclear weapons. Nikita Piskunov participated in the work of Forum's subsection, Diplomacy of Municipalities, Mechanisms and Forms of Interaction. During his presentation, he talked about the importance of keeping historical memory about the tragedy in Hiroshima and relation to the victim of this tragedy, that never to repeat such awful inhuman action. The next. From 2018, I participated in the organization of the assemblies of International Discussion Club at our Volgograd State University. The next, please. During the work of the Assembly of the International Discussion Club, students discuss different points of peacemaking construction process and trying to find exit for good direction of this development. Particularly, Associate Professor Elena Parobochia and Teaching Assistant Nikita Piskunov told about their work experience in Hiroshima and the programs of Mayors for Peace and the ways of development of this experience in the modern Russia to stop and to abolish nuclear weapons. Students of educational program International Relations demonstrated movie about tragedies in Hiroshima and Stalingrad. Next, please. In October 2017, the Japanese delegation headed by Secretary General of Mayors for Peace, Mr. Yasuyoshi Komizo, and Mayors for Peace Secretariat's representative Isao Hashimoto visited Volgograd State University. During the meeting of Japanese representatives with Volgograd State University Rector Vasily Charakhanov, talked about the necessity of Hiroshima Peace Study Course creation in Volsu and about the further perspectives of our common cooperation and interaction. The next, please. During Football World Cup 2018, the delegation of the Japanese football fans visited Volgograd State University. Students of our university took part in this event, and we talked about the terrible consequences of a bombing on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and about the necessity of liquidation and full prohibition of nuclear weapon in all the world. The Japanese guest showed us how to do origami. The next, please. In July 2018, I participated in the work of the online conference with the participation of Mayors for Peace Secretariat and young people from different countries of the world. At this event, our students presented materials about their peaceful activities. The next, please. In the late 2018, I presented different materials about bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki to the students of Volgograd State University. Within the discussion, I told them about my personal experience of Hiroshima visitation in 2017 year. The next. Japanese delegation of Hiroshima Peace Culture Foundation, reciters of atomic memoirs, visited Center of Public Diplomacy at Volgograd State University and demonstrated the presentation about a bombing of Hiroshima, August 6, 1945. The representatives of the delegation presented the lecture about the awful consequences of a bombing. The next, please. In November and December 2018, I worked within the Japanese-Russian Youth Forum in Tokyo and in the city of Matsumoto on the base of Shinsu University. In the work of this forum participated different representatives from the Russian universities, from Kaliningrad to Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, where we discussed with our Japanese colleagues different ways of safe non-nuclear world society construction. The next, please. After my participation in Hiroshima and Peace 2017 summer study course with my colleagues, I began to realize different events dedicated to the problems of the nuclear weapon liquidation and nuclear non-proliferation. Because I think the nuclear weapon is the evil for all mankind, and we need to make all efforts to come to the nuclear weapons total abolition. Besides, people of the modern digital world should memorize about the value of human life. And in different conflict situations, we should stay human being, always. Thank you for your attention.
Right. Большое спасибо, Nikita.
Не за что.
Right. Next, Mr. Christopher Moss from Manchester, the United Kingdom, will give a presentation.
Hello, everyone. Thank you to all my panelists, and thank you for everybody tuning in from all around the world, wherever you are. I'll just wait for the presentation to come up. Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to this Lessons from Hiroshima presentation. Next. In this presentation, I'll draw on my experiences from the International Youth Conference for Peace in the Future, was held in Hiroshima in summer of 2017. Rely on how my interaction with and exposure to Japanese culture and history has gifted me with greater understanding and appreciation of the tragic and destructive events of August 6, 1945, and how now, possibly more than ever, we must endeavor to keep the spirit of Hiroshima alive and continue to spread the lessons of peace it teaches us. In doing so, I'll briefly discuss some of the work that both I and my city of Manchester have been doing to continue to tell the story of peace that my time in Japan taught me. Next, please. My time in Japan was the most positively overwhelming experience of my life to date. I was immersed in so many activities, events, and amazing discussions with a more multicultural group of people than I have ever been engaged with either before or since. The opportunities for learning from our surroundings, our experiences, and from our interaction with one another were immense and had a profound effect on me. Having the opportunity to engage with 44 other young people from 9 countries across 3 continents and discuss what peace means to us both individually and collectively was immensely insightful and valuable to me. The power of conversation has never seemed so strong, and it is this dialogue, this narrative, this story of overcoming, of hope in the face of destruction and peace in the future that must continue to be told. 2 prominent memories of mine where the message of peace was most emotive were attending the anniversary ceremony, laying flowers in the memorial park, and listening to a hibakusha recount first-hand experiences of August 6th. Next, please. I felt honored to attend and take part in the anniversary ceremony, to witness firsthand how much it means to the people of Japan to commemorate and memorialize the lives that were lost in 1945, and then to ensure that the same atrocities are not committed again. The diversity of people there was immense, from people like myself and my fellow participants, to Hiroshima residents and even Prime Minister Abe. It was clear that the need to remember, to take the lessons of 1945 forward and instill their value and importance in the 21st century is something that is agreed upon by all. Nowhere was this powerful when listening to the first-hand testimony of a hibakusha. Next, please. I'm honored and privileged to have been able to listen firsthand to accounts of August 6th from a survivor. She represented a physical embodiment of the message of hope and resilience that I had learned in Japan. And the way she told her story with such vitality and passion was encapsulating and inspiring. Hearing the experiences of hibakusha on the day of August 6th, I was in awe of her strength to recount the horror she witnessed so that we could understand more clearly and vividly the purpose of our time in Japan and the duty that we all must bear to ensure her story and the stories of all those affected be heard and continue to be told to spread the message of peace from Hiroshima and Nagasaki around the world. Next, please. As time passes and the events of 1945 grow further away, it increasingly becomes the responsibility of the next generation to ensure that the messages of Hiroshima of peace, resilience, and hope continue to be spread around the world. In Manchester, the Project G initiative has engaged school children from 6 schools with the message of peace in Hiroshima and the story of the resilient ginkgo tree. Some of the ginkgo seeds that were gifted to Manchester City Council have now been passed on to all 6 schools engaged in Project G, and the remaining seeds are to be planted in a brand new peace garden within the city. The purpose of these acts is to ensure that the lessons of Hiroshima are passed on and continue to be understood. My own experiences working with both Project G and the IYCPF have instilled within me the value of continuing to work towards ensuring we all live more peacefully in whatever way we can. Whether it be on the everyday scale, making changes in your school, university, or workplace, we all have a role to play in advancing the message of peace. It is my opinion that by continuing to educate and communicate, we will continue to make positive progress towards peace. Through an understanding of one another's differences and similarities, we can strive to forge relationships, establishing a set of collective values that may one day constitute a culture of peace. I would like to end this presentation by giving my utmost thanks to everybody engaged today and Mayors for Peace for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this essential cause. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Christopher. Our final presenter is Ms. Eriko Yanaoka from Nagasaki, Japan.
Yes. Welcome everyone. I'm Eriko Yanaoka and I'm an English teacher at elementary school. So next please. Okay. 3 years ago, I took part in Hiroshima and Peace. This is a photo of the members in the program. The strongest reason why I applied for this program was that I wanted to know more about the nature of war and peace through learning about various aspects of wartime experiences. When I teach my students, I don't think it's enough to just teach them the war is terrifying, merciless, and solves nothing. Because of my Because of my experiences teaching about the war in English classes, I would like to learn more about World War II and the atomic bomb victims of Hiroshima. Next, please. Therefore, I was pleased to take part in Hiroshima and peace, and it was a wonderful opportunity for me to think about peace. Since I was a child, I avoided from reading and studying about war because it made me sad. However, I decided to change my attitude to tragedy, so I attended some lectures. I was very shocked to hear the Hibakusha stories that they had been hurt not only by radiation, but also by discrimination. Also, I was surprised to know that there were so many people and NGOs that did peacekeeping operations. I felt that I had a responsibility to inform students who didn't know what happened in Hiroshima 75 years ago and explain the peacekeeping people do in Hiroshima today. I wanted them to understand this story like it is their own. Next, please. Because of this, I am now confident that I can teach my students about war and peace. I can emphasize how important it is to keep world peace in the future. I believe this is my mission as a teacher. I would like to ponder these everlasting questions with my students and continue to explain the importance of peace. Next, please. I taught about Hiroshima 3 years in a row, every year after visiting Hiroshima. I taught moral education to 5th graders on June 6th and 7th. I taught 64 students, and I used the Peace Learning Unit borrowed from Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum. Next, please. Now, I am going to introduce the students' comments. Each slide is a comment from a different student. I was sad when I heard many people died because of war, and I wonder why people dropped such a terrible bomb. If I had lost my family in front of me, I couldn't have done anything at all because of the grief. I was moved that even after they lost their family, they lived with strength. Next, please. When I heard about Hiroshima, I didn't believe that just an atomic bomb killed such a huge number of people, and it was far from my daily life. I was also disappointed to hear that the Hibakusha and their family still suffer from the feelings of regret that they were not able to help their families or friends. Next, please. I was really saddened to hear that even though many people died because of atomic bombs, many countries are still building more nuclear weapons against Hibakusha's wishes. Once a person dies, they never return to life. Therefore, people need to live together and help each other. I hope all weapons are disarmed and destroyed so that no one will be hurt again. Next, please. Where I was impressed the most was people in Hiroshima didn't want to take revenge to Americans. I didn't know about Hiroshima well, so I have thought that they would want to take revenge. I think the people of Hiroshima must have concluded that they do not wish for others to endure the pain which they suffered. For this, I think they are deeply compassionate people. Next, please. It was the students' first time to learn about war and the atomic bomb in detail. None of them knew Mayors for Peace, and only one out of 64 students knew when the atomic bomb was dropped in Hiroshima. However, they came talk to me about what they have already knew about war, and they looked at the books that I borrowed at the library about Hiroshima after the class. Also, they wrote about this lesson, and some surveyed at home about nuclear weapons. This is the first step for them to know what happened in Japan 75 years ago, and I am sure that they will tell their families and this tragedy too. Next, please. Some students told me that they want to help the activities to eliminate nuclear weapons, and another student thought that they wanted to do some activities to learn more about the terror of them to teach next generation. Through this class, some students thought about peacekeeping, and one student thought it was to be kind to each other, and another thought it was to help those in need. I hope my students will keep these ideas and are interested in peacekeeping activities. I will continue to teach what I learned in Hiroshima. That's of all my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Okay. Thank you very much, Eriko Sensei. And we have listened to all the 5 presentations by young leaders from member cities. Now I will share questions for them, and the presentators will answer respectively. This is a question to Ines. Do you think learning about cultural differences contribute to build world peace?
I think the fact that we know other culture build the peace, because the hate of other people come from the not knowing them. So the more you know about other culture, the more you want to make peace, you want to make friends with them. If there is a friend of you, you will not make a war with him. So the population are friendly to other, the more there will be peace, because they are not hate each other. For example, the political of our country make the view that we have of other country kind of bad. Like in France, for example, we have a bad image of Russian or Iranian. But in truth, what I've learned for IECPF is that there is no hate to have to these people, because they're really friendly, really like us. Everyone is the same, just difference of culture, but no one is evil because he comes from a country. So knowing the cultural aspect of other culture is really important for me, and in my city it's what we apply to build peace. That's all.
Yes, good. Thank you. The next question is for Roberto. What do you think culture of peace is important to realize lasting world peace?
Yeah. Well, culture of peace, it's a path. It's not like something that we have already done in a box, like ready to deliver to everyone. So I think it's a construction, like Ines was talking, like to not fear someone, to know the culture, and to build peace is a big road that we have to climb and go forward. I do believe that we have to give more power to the cities. I think Mayors for Peace is a great initiative in order to give that, because we should have more voice. The city should have more voice in the UN, for example. One of the greatest learning that I had when I was in Hiroshima was that when a city is destroyed, the war doesn't stop because the city is destroyed. But like a mayor, like when he's in front of the city, for him, that's the end of the world, basically, like the city is destroyed. So we have to give more voice to the cities. That's a concept brought by Dave Adams a former UNESCO decade of culture of peace. And he brings that idea that's really powerful and really keen for us to build a culture of peace in our cities. Here in Santos, we have this group of students that went to Hiroshima, led by the mayor, the city mayor and representative Paula Quagliato. A big hug for her. She's uniting us, like these young people here, to think about culture of peace in our city, so we can bring the voice to the world. And I think that the voice of the city should be heard over the voice of the countries, basically, in the matters of war and conflicts, and especially about atomic bombings, because atomic bombs, they have the power to destruct one city, and that's a lot for us. But for a country, they keep going on the war because one city is not enough for them. So I do believe that culture of peace is a construction, and it's like a small construction from small people. And we as people like that are relating to each other, we understand, we fear, we love when we are close to each other. So it's basically like we have to build this peace inside ourselves, and then from the upper levels, and not from top down, but from the bottom up, basically that. I don't know if I get confused here, but that's the idea of building a culture of peace from the basis, from one to one. For example, like Lucas, a friend of us here in Santos, he sent like big hugs to Eriko and Nikita, because he met them at Japan a few years ago, and he's close to them. And I feel closer to the people in Japan because I went there. So I'm not keen to enter the war or like sending a bomb or ever to those guys, because I'm related to them. I'm close to them. So that's it.
All right, wonderful. The next question is to Nikita. This is a question from Sahel. I don't know how to pronounce. The question is, what do you think young people can do toward world peace? It's a very big question, but yeah, concisely, please.
Thank you for question. I would like to say that young people can do different things for peace construction, and on the example of our university and our peaceful activities in Volgograd, is sister city of Hiroshima. We trying to involve different young people of all ages to this peaceful activities, and we try and make different seminars, round tables, and we are trying to discuss the tragedies of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And when I was in Hiroshima, I brought from there many books about these tragedies, and by these examples, we try to help to young people to understand the necessity of peace in all of the world. And I think that all young people of the world should communicate, make common communication, and together they can defeat these evil nuclear weapons, and we can build a peaceful future for our children, and we can forget about wars and different awful things and nuclear weapons too, in my opinion. Thanks.
Wonderful, thank you. Now, the next question is to Chris. This is a question from Mikhail. Please let us know any future activities you or your community plan to do under COVID-19 pandemic. Chris?
Future activities. Well, I think for me, at an individual level, As I sort of mentioned in my presentation, it's a lot about communication, talking to people and engaging a dialogue about maybe not necessarily peace as a very broad concept, but you know, a sort of a peaceful act. I think what this time has shown us, whilst we've been in lockdown, with all of the uncertainty and all of the stresses that's put on us, is the need to engage more closely with one another. Just at a very personal level, where I live, me and my neighbors have been, you know, communicating, working together, lending each other things much more. And as a result, we've gained a lot more close-knit relationships as a result of that. And I think at the very micro scale, these are all sorts of things that we can be doing under the conditions of COVID-19 to pursue a more peaceful community, however small that is. I know that Manchester City Council are still planning and going ahead with things at the more regional city scale to do things in relation to peace. I know that there are still plans going ahead for a peace garden to be constructed, and that is still, and there are still things going ahead there. So there's things still happening. I suppose COVID-19 has slowed things down a little bit from Manchester City Council's perspective, potentially, but I know there are still things happening. And I suppose it's just about trying to maintain a level of resilience and hope, really, in the face of everything that's going on around us. So that's my answer, really.
Thank you. Now, the question to Eriko Sensei. After teaching about the atomic bombings, do your students ask your questions? What are they? After teaching about the atomic bombings, do your students ask your questions? What kind of are they?
The question means the students ask me some questions about atomic bomb.
Pardon me, sorry.
Sorry, the question means the student, what kind of questions?
Yeah. So
okay, sorry, I couldn't understand, I'm sorry. Yeah, many students asked me, why do they need to have atomic bombs after such a tragedy, and how can you use these nuclear weapons? Yeah, that kind of question they asked me. Yeah, but I answered it was very difficult because we can't solve this program only in Japan. You know, we have to cooperate with other countries. So it is very difficult, but we need to think that nuclear weapons are really bad things. So we need to, we do not have any more nuclear weapons. We need to know that idea. Yeah, that's all.
I agree. Thank you, Eriko Sensei. Now, we would now like to end the Q&A session. Thank you very much. This concludes all the contents of today's event. So let me review the webinar. I will try to cover all of the contents. Okay. All right. Just allow me to make some comments from now on. And first of all, as Professor Nakamura demonstrated in her very informative lecture, there still remain more than 13,000 nuclear warheads as of today. Additionally, the US and Russia withdrew from the INF Treaty, while the nuclear weapons modernization program, as the Professor Nakamura said, underway in the various nuclear weapon countries, including Russia and the US themselves. Meanwhile, I would say China doesn't intend to join the dialogue for nuclear disarmament. But despite these challenges, I was greatly encouraged by all of your endeavor for peace that follows Ms. Finn, Beatrice Finn. To the extent that nuclear armed the countries and their allies no longer feel it necessary to rely on nuclear deterrence, that we should promote mutual confidence building among nations. Here, what I would like to stress is any political leaders cannot completely ignore the will of the people, no matter what political system their government adopting. That's why I strongly believe that we general citizen in civil society should be tenaciously committed to grassroots activity to appeal for the abolition of the nuclear weapons in various ways and various venues. This venue may lie in the internet space, as we learned during the presentation by Ms. Takami of Nagasaki Youth Delegation, which utilize new technologies, internet technologies, or the other venues for dialogue could be international conference, such as Japanese, Russian Youth Forum that Mr. Piskunov took part in. And also granting an interview to newspaper journalists, as the Ms. Raquel reported, that must be a very effective way too. And I'm also convinced that conveying the truth and reality of atomic bombing and Hibakusha experiences to the tourists, as Mr. Nomura is doing, is admirable. Well, I truly understand that your job is not just the tour guide. As Ms. Yanaoka suggests, young generation have responsibility to pass on the words of Hibakusha through education and try to inform the kids the reality of atomic bombing. I totally agree with that message. And in addition, I was very impressed by the fact that Mr. Herberto Santos de Lima is engaged in annual peace ceremony in Santos in Brazil, where actually Hibakusha also attends. And the Project G initiative, the Manchester City, the council has been promoting, and in which Mr. Christopher Moss is engaged, must be, I think, quite meaningful for raising awareness of the importance of the abolition of nuclear weapons and promoting mutual understanding as well. And also, as Sunao-san said earlier in her presentation, that all humans could be next hibakusha, all humans could make others be hibakusha. I agree with her opinion. That's why raising awareness is pretty important, very important. However, in today's meeting, what I found actually more impressive in today's webinar is that you are continuously heavily engaged with the peace activities. I see that for you, these events are not, just ephemeral or transient, but rather I totally understand that you are building a block for future project. In concluding, unfortunately, we are witnessing the revival of the great power politics and revival of self-centered nationalism. However, I can't help but to feel the rising tide of grassroots activities. Rising tide at the grassroots level to counter such worrisome international situations. You are a very important part of it, and I wish this project here and all of your projects will have many more successful years to come. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Now, on that note, we have reached the end of our the peace education webinar. Thank you all. Thank you for joining us from around the world today. Ms. Nakamura, many thanks for your talk at the beginning and for staying with us until the end. Recording of this webinar will be posted on the Mayors for Peace website soon. So I hope you will enjoy watching it later. Thank you, participants and live stream viewers for your cooperation, and goodbye.